Welcome to the She Wins podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin, and today I have my producer, Lucas, here, who is going to ask some questions that he apparently found on the interwebs for me.
Yeah.
And I think some might be from his brain, which is even
There's
better.
a couple follow-ups.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we talk a little bit about pageantry. We talk a little about subjective graded sports. We talk about, just ways to think, how I handle certain things with clients, how to.
Honey Boo Boo. She makes an appearance.
He mentions Honey Boo Boo, which is that's different. That's cool. Whatever works. And so we have a little bit of fun. I hope you like it. Share it with a friend. All right.
So one of the things that always intrigues me, and this is our first question that we have here, is the involvement of parents and their kids, right? You guys have talked about a book called Parenting Champions. There's a whole system of how to do that. The number one question that I get whenever I tell people, hey, we record this awesome podcast with this pageant coach, is they're like, how do I keep from being that parent? How do I keep from being the pageant mom? Or how do I keep from being like that soccer dad, or like whatever it is? I think it applies to a bunch of different areas of parenting, but how do you keep from being that parent?
That parent.
That parent.
Okay, so I'm assuming that parent means that you are
the momager.
Overly in their way.
Right.
Okay, I guess it's just like with anything. Let's identify that we have a problem first, right?
Yeah, that's step one,
that's
right?
Fair. One of the things that I really like that's in Parenting Champions, so my father, Lanny Basham, wrote Parenting Champions, and one of the things that he mentions is that it's important to match the participation level of your athlete, of your child. So what he means by is basically the passion level, so the level of interest. So if they are just interested in something, then you should also just be interested. If they are committed, you should be committed. If they are passionate, you should be passionate. And oftentimes what I've seen is that their parents are out of line with where the kids are. So the kid could be interested in a sport or an activity, and the parent sees the potential in the kid and then wants them to be passionate, and so then sets goals or tries to make the kid do more or excel faster than that child is probably capable of. So the first thing is to be really real with yourself and with your kid. Like, where are you really? And if your child is super passionate about something, feeding that passion is important and not ignoring that passion. Like leaning into, this is something that my kid cares about, wants to do, is excited about. If you can financially afford to and physically, like with your time, afford to, then invest back into that activity with your kid.
Yeah.
And if they're just interested, let them just have fun with it, and don't think they're going to go get a full ride scholarship to college doing the thing that they just don't really love to do, but they think it's kind of fun.
Yeah. You do a lot of work with subjective competitions. I have to tell you, that drives me nuts, right? Like I did bodybuilding for a little while, which was subjective. And then most of my other background is in either like powerlifting or in combat sports. And there aren't a lot of things in those arenas that are subjective. However, right, for instance, in a boxing match, and I know that's not like your audience, but I promise I've got a good question coming that we've got from internet. I'm just trying to frame it in a way that helps me understand it. Right, in a boxing match, if you don't knock the other guy out, then it goes to the judges. And there's this transparency in boxing and in MMA that where, this judge scored at about, 50-49. This one scored at 50-49. This one scored at, 48-48. And so we know which judge was the one that caused the split decision. In pageantry, it doesn't seem like that's the case. And in a lot of subjective things, like it's not. In gymnastics, you have that same kind of transparency. Oh, the judge from Norway gave, an 8 instead of a 9 or whatever. So the question that we have is, how do I handle a loss that's purely subjective? Everyone thought I won except for one judge.
Oh, a lot of times you don't even know.
Right. Yeah. So like in pageantry, it's not even known.
Not always. There are certain systems that will give you your scores or will tell you and give you feedback and comments and things like that. Some of the larger systems, like the Miss America system, Miss USA, they don't give you your scores back. You might, in some cases be able to find somebody to give you feedback, but usually the judges aren't even allowed to talk to you. So therefore you can't even get any idea of what it was that kept you from winning. But you mentioned boxing, and a lot of times I'll make this point. This is not an opponent-based sport. And I think a lot of times girls go into this competition feeling like I have to beat somebody, I have to be better than somebody else. And so therefore I'm going to research my competition and find out what they're doing. Well, if we were boxing, that makes sense. Because I would need to know, like, how are you training? I'd watch your videos. I would try to find out where are your holes so that I can try to one-up you, right? I'd have to pay attention to what you're doing because that would dictate what I would do. But in pageantry, that's not the case. In pageantry, I don't need to know what you're doing. I don't need to look at your social media. I don't even need to follow you on social media, but they all follow each other. They all do. They follow each other. They comment. They think it's the sisterhood, which is great. It's beautiful. It's awesome. But if you fall victim to comparison, maybe you mute your wonderful friends and then you don't see all the things that they're doing. So on one hand, the one who wins in a pageant competition oftentimes is the one who believed that they could, no matter who was there. Because that resonates, right? So you can tell if someone's confident. You can tell if someone's dedicated and disciplined and here for the right reasons for the most part. But you also have to remember that the judges see you for a handful of minutes total. A few minutes in an interview room, a few minutes on stage, and they're determining whether or not you're ready for this role based on that limited amount of time with you. And so while I can tell a lot of things, I don't know everything, and therefore there could be more than one person deserving of the win, but only one will be recognized as the winner. That's what makes it different, but that's one of the things I love about it.
Yeah.
Is you can win anyway. Like maybe they don't give you the title, but you can win anyway because your goal wasn't, I have to get the crown in order to feel like I won. Your goal is I have to do my very best in every phase of competition and maybe have a little bit of fun at the same time, and then I know that then I feel like I won.
That makes sense. All right, question, I guess this is number 3. What age is the right age to get involved in pageantry? My daughter is interested, but I'm not trying to raise Honey Boo Boo. I think this is an interesting question, especially like in our area, because in the Dallas area, there are a lot of, we always refer to them as like the Little Miss pageants, where you do have kids that are single digit age that are competing in those kinds of things. I know this may be an odd question for you to answer, like, but what do you recommend to parents?
I don't have much of an opinion. I feel like if you would like to put your child into an environment that you think would be beneficial for them, then you have every right to do that. I didn't put Ashley in like the glitz kinds of competitions. So as where you're putting makeup on kids and things like that. That's not an area in which I have a lot of experience in. But I do have a lot of clients that I've worked with when they've gotten older and moved into some other competitions that did that and have had a great experience. So I don't necessarily have a negative opinion one way or the other, but I think that I would think about what is the intention and the reason. Are we putting them in these competitions because we think it's going to help them grow as individuals? In what way will they grow? I put my daughter into, there was a fundraising pageant. So like the Miss America system, there was a local that did a fundraiser. They did like a little pageant as a fundraiser. Ashley was 18 months old. She did this little competition and she won it. She was Little Miss Plano. She may not even remember it. Like 18 months old. And she won, I think, because she looked back and waved and says, "Daddy," and it was cute, and she won. And I thought it was helpful for her to have to get on stage for a second. And I thought it would be a fun thing to do together because it was, I had to walk her out on stage. So it was kind of cute, but I never got her into anything that was really serious like that. She did another one when she was 4 or 5. She did another little Miss kind of thing that was a fundraiser again. Same organization put on this little fundraiser. And she did not win this time. And she was very angry. And she gets in the car and she's super upset. I'm like, why are you upset? Because she was upset because she got the wrong color trophy. It was it. Like, I thought she was upset that she didn't win. And I was
Right.
like, oh, honey, it's okay. She goes, no, I wanted the pink trophy. And I'm like, well, okay. She got the purple participation trophy and she was not happy about that.
Yeah, the pink trophy could have been 5th place and it didn't matter. Just
She
as
had
long
no
as it was
idea
pink.
she didn't
Yeah.
win. She had no idea that it mattered. It was not a big deal. She just wanted the different color trophy for whatever reason. So I think we need to look at what are we doing it for? I was doing it to help raise money for the organization, give my kid a little bit of exposure to some potential mentors for her and things like that, which I think is valuable. I think you just look at, is this something that I want for my kid? But I don't necessarily have a negative opinion either way, or positive or negative either way.
Right. How challenging is it for you to coach the self-image? This is one of those things that I often wonder, sitting in the engineering room is you've got all these like very confident, or at least they present very confident, right? Beautiful young women that are incredibly talented. They're really well-spoken. Like all of those things are necessities for them to be able to compete at the levels that you're coaching, especially like the state and the national level. How challenging is it for you to coach the self-image of people who present really confident?
What's really interesting to me is pretty much everybody that I've worked with who's done really well at the state or national level have admitted that they had areas that they still needed to work when it comes to the self-image. So they already know, hey, I want to work on this, that, or the other. Comparison, they still struggle with comparison. They still have those things that they want to work on. And I think it's not difficult to work with someone who wants to change. All too often we hear, like, you're perfect just as you are, which I agree to an extent. You're worthy just as you are, or you're valuable just as you are, I guess I should say. You're valuable just as you are. I think that that's very, very true. However, no one's perfect. And I think we should strive for excellence. And I think sometimes there's going to be, almost always, there's going to be something that you could work on as an individual to head towards excellence. And when my clients understand that and they're open-minded, they recognize, wait, there's certain things that I could do that I could get a tad bit better each and every day. And that's something that I care about and that I want to do. So that person's really fun to work with. Yeah. When you have someone who just doesn't think that they need to work, first of all, they don't wind up calling me anyway, so I don't have to worry about that. But there have been...
That's a good way to weed out your potential bad clients.
That just doesn't happen. I have yet to have somebody like pay for my time and go, yeah, no, I think I'm great. Awesome. Most of the time they struggle with answering that one question, like, why should you win? What do you bring to the table that's different from everybody else? Why are you remarkable, special, valuable, different, great? And that's where they struggle. And even though on the outside, everybody's like, wow, you're so confident, you have it all together. And inside they're like, yeah, but I'm not better than her. And I'm like, you're probably right. You're not better than her. You're different from her. You're still valuable. You still matter. You're still important. But you have different reasons why. Yeah. You're bringing something different to the table. So I don't find it to be challenging. What I find it to be is super fun. Because what we're trying to do is get them to maybe look at perceive things from a different perspective in order to build self-image. Self-image grows and shrinks based on imprinting. So the way that we're viewing what's going on around us is an imprint. How we take in compliments or dismiss them, that's an imprint. How we talk to ourselves is an imprint. What our family, friends, coaches, boyfriends say to us, imprint. So we need to watch the quality of the imprints. So that changes what happens with our self-image.
So I want to piggyback off of this. How do you teach taking compliments? Because I'm a deflector. Like if somebody says to me like, oh, you did a good job, I'm like, okay. Did
you say thank you?
But I've gotten to the point now I am saying thank you, but I immediately dismiss it. It used to be like when I was younger, especially because I was a professional musician when I was a teenager, somebody would come up to me and they'd be like, oh, you know what? You were a great bass player. And I was so... that mix of arrogance and insecurity was so high for me that whenever somebody would say that, my immediate thought was like almost, it was definitely aggressive. That was almost offensive, where I'd be like, okay, so cool. So name 5 good bass players. Like, how do you know if I'm a good bass player or not if you can't name 5 good bass players? Like, you have no frame of reference. Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so your compliment doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly, right? And not only would I make them feel bad for giving me a compliment, but it was that immediate, dismissal. I do say thank you and things now, and I've gotten a lot better at that. But there are a lot of people, especially like high performers, high achievers, that are quick to dismiss compliments. That just they don't hear them, they don't say thank you, they don't believe them, right? So how do you coach taking compliments? Because that's something that happens a lot to the people that you coach, especially those that are winning awards, even if they don't believe them.
Okay, so let's say that I went to the store.
Okay.
And I bought you a gift, and I put it in a box, and I wrapped it up, and I put a nice little bow on it. And I said, Lucas, here, I got this for you. What would you do?
I would open it.
Yeah, you would receive it, right?
Right, yeah.
You would open it. You'd probably be, like, super grateful.
I'd be really surprised.
You'd be like, happy and grateful.
It depends on what's in the box. What's the gift?
It's something you want.
A cookie.
Sure.
So stoked.
Yeah. Skittles.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something, okay. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Now I'm in.
Perfect.
I'm
now I know.
Easy to please.
Now I know what to get Lucas.
Yeah.
Some Skittles. But do you like the original kind? Do you like the tropical kind?
I'm the sour
kind?
I'm 100% the sour kind.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Here's the deal. That's a physical gift, but a compliment is a verbal gift. So I'm still packaging it. I'm packaging it with words, right? So it actually is more vulnerable for me to give you a verbal compliment, a verbal gift, than it would be for me to go buy you some Skittles and hand them to you. So therefore, you should receive it with the same amount of joy, the same amount of enthusiasm, probably more so, because I took the time to value you enough to share something that is vulnerable for me to do, because I have to open up and actually tell you something.
Yeah.
So therefore, you should receive a compliment with the same amount of enthusiasm that you would receive a gift, because it actually is one. And the best thing, if you don't see it in yourself, the best thing, in my opinion, to do is to respond with, I'm so glad you see that in me. Thank you so much for noticing that. Even if you don't believe it, because you're thinking that, thank you so much for telling me, thank you so much for noticing that in me, that means a lot.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, that imprint determines your self-image is growing or shrinking, right? So if they give you a compliment and they're like, hey, that presentation was so good. And you're like, oh, thanks. And then they walk away, but you didn't actually receive it. Or worse, if you said, oh, that actually wasn't my best. I mean, did you hear, I'm kind of upset about this, that, or the other. Well, then they don't ever want to compliment you again.
Yeah.
Because you're basically saying, no, you're lying. So if you receive it and you say, hey, thank you so much for seeing that in me, I'm more likely to compliment you again.
Right.
Which is good, because then we're going to take in that imprint. And the other thing that I would say is, like, if someone's complimenting you on something, then I want you to not only receive it, I want you to reflect on it. I kind of want you to write it down.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah. But then you can see it again later.
No, I'd burn it.
And again. You burn
I'd
them?
burn it. I'd burn the compliment.
Wow, he's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
This is why I work with women.
That's how much I would deflect. I'd be like, yeah, I wrote it. And then, you'd call me, did you write it down?
But that's one of the things that I think that people should write down.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think it resonates. It's like, somebody saw this in me. That means I'm connecting in a way that I didn't even realize. That's so cool. And especially when it's not just about appearance, especially when it's about character or about something that you put a lot of time, energy, and effort into. That's important.
Yeah. All right. Last question for our Q&A for YouTube. Who is the most rewarding person for you to coach?
Rewarding person? Someone who actually shows up on time. Pays attention. You know who's really fun to work with? I'm not going to give like a name or anything, but but I have some people that I work with that, and this is not a requirement by any means. I mean, but every now and again I'll have somebody who is so on top of what they want that they show up, they write down amazing notes, they prepare in advance for a session, because the way that my consultation goes is it's basically, we're going to work with you on what you need in the moment. And so a lot of times I'll have girls that they show up and they're like, I've really been thinking about it, and this is something that I think is in my way. I really want to work on this. And it takes a certain amount of maturity to be ready for that. Not everybody is, and we're at different levels. So it depends on what they're doing. But that's rewarding. And it's also rewarding when I have somebody who says, hey, here's just something that you said made such an impact on me, and they go back and they're flipping through their notes, and then they've taken pages and pages of notes every time that we've met, and I didn't realize it. Wow. And then they're like, you said this and this made a huge difference. I like that. I like to know. I like to know if something that I said resonated. I also like it if they're a member of my Patreon channel, because it helps, because then they have more information to go back to connect to be able to have a little more knowledge in between sessions. I think that's helpful. It's definitely rewarding, especially when they say, Heather, oh my gosh, that thing you just posted was so good. And then I'm like, yay.
Huzzah, we did it.
I'm so glad. Those
awesome.
are cool, but I love everybody. I look at my schedule every single morning. I look to see who's on my schedule. And I'll think about something positive about each and every person on my schedule and get excited to talk to them, because whoever's in front of me is my favorite person. You're my favorite person right now, Lucas.
Oh, that's awesome.
My favorite person.
I don't know that I've ever been anybody's favorite person, even for a moment.
Yes, you have.
I mean, yeah, probably like wedding day. That was it. And then like after that.
Well, I sure hope you're still her favorite person.
Well, with 2 kids, I got a lot of competition now. The babies are pretty cute. And
I guarantee you there are moments when she wants to give them to you. And
there are moments where I get them. Yeah, for sure. You're right. Yeah. In those moments, I'm definitely the favorite person because I allow her the opportunity for a nap. So, but all of this stuff is fascinating. To me, it's so great to get to sit in the engineering room and get to meet the people that you get to interview, to listen to what you're doing, not just on this, but on the dog training side as well. Being somebody who raised hunting dogs for years and years, we raised bird dogs, and so getting to kind of be a fly on the wall for a lot of those conversations is really cool. I have one. I know I said that was the last question. We're like right at the 20-minute mark, but I want to know from a coaching perspective. Mm-hmm. Right. One of the things that you've talked about, one of the things that your dad talks about, is how much we learn from losses. Mm-hmm. Right. So as a coach, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from a loss as a coach?
Oh, wow. From a loss as a coach. I got fired from a client once.
Okay.
I mean, and which is interesting, because most of the time, if someone just doesn't want to work with you, they just don't schedule again. And you just don't know. And I literally had somebody like, I'm not gonna work with you anymore. But it had to do with there was a misunderstanding, miscommunication as part of it. But it also had to do with like I had to cancel a couple times, reschedule a couple times because of things going on with my kids at the time. And what I learned was that, number one, everybody needs something a little bit different. And I honestly wasn't the best person for this person anyways.
Yeah.
But secondly, I learned that it's okay for me to have family be number one priority. Because if family's not the number one priority, then what am I doing all of this for? And so it checked me for a second. It kind of hit me for a minute that I was like, woof, this person literally just called me out. And then I realized, but it's okay for me to have my own life too.
Yeah.
And most of the time I don't reschedule, cancel, things like that. It just happened to be in this period of my life. I didn't have a choice. And it also freed that person up to go find somebody else, hopefully.
Yeah.
That was going to be better suited for them anyways. But it was a moment where at first I was really, I wasn't offended. I was just kind of like hurt, I think, a little bit. But then at the same time, I was like, yeah, but that's fair. It's totally fair. And I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's what the first thing that came to mind as far as like almost like a failure as a coach. The biggest failure, I think, as a coach that I've had is overworking myself.
Yeah.
To the point of, for many years, I didn't put family first. And so I think that's why at that moment I was like, but it's okay. Because I would literally work, I would overdo it. And last week I was kind of reminded of it, because I literally had a 12-hour day with one 30-minute break. Mm. And I thought to myself, well, why did I do that? Like, I literally can block out a lunch hour. And I'd forgotten on my online schedule to block out a lunch hour. I got my lunch. Don't worry. I eat very quickly. But it was one of those things where it reminded me of those days when I would do that day after day after day and value myself less than my client. And that's not fair to me. And so I think that's why I realized it was almost like a full circle moment. And I realized, okay, I finally to the point to where I value myself, my life more than I value my client, because at the end of the day, if I'm not healthy, I can't help them.
Yeah.
If I'm not being fed and fueled and nurtured and everything outside of work, then I'm not going to be able to be good within it. Right. And so I think I don't know if that answers the question exactly, but that's where my brain went.
Yeah, for sure. I think it does. And I think that, we hear a lot about like the work-life balance and, the family work balance and those kinds of things. And the truth is, I think that there is no balance to it, that one of those things will have to win out. And the more often that it's not family, the more difficult everything else becomes.
I hear it all the time, like, so women, you can do it all. I said, yes, but not all at once. I mean, there is, I remember I was interviewing, I think it was Kristen Dalton Wolf.
Okay.
And she was Miss USA. She's a family. She's a ministry. She's written books. Like, she's a very accomplished,
brilliant lady,
woman. And I remember asking her, like, how do you do it? And she goes, I've learned about seasons, and I have to pay attention to what season am I in. And I organize my life around this season as opposed to what's pulling on you. And I thought that was brilliant because, I'm finally in a little bit of a different season. My kids are older. I have a little bit more time and flexibility. I can do more, but I also can do more for me. Yeah. Which is nice too. So I think it's just recognizing, where are you? Do you need to do everything you want to do? I don't know. And I also, it kind of goes back to analyzing, like, why do you want your kid to go into a pageant as a child? Who does it benefit? And so I think you've got to figure out also with the idea of having so many balls in the air, do you need all the balls in the air? And if you drop one, would that actually make every other ball stay up? I don't know, something to think about. Why am I doing everything I'm doing? Do I need to do everything I'm doing? Is it valuable to me to do everything I'm doing? If so, great, do it. Maybe do it more efficiently. But if not, then why? Just a thought. Yeah. That's what's in my head today.
That's good stuff to chew on. And all of our people who are watching, if you guys have questions, we do take note of all of this stuff. So throw them in the comments on this. And the next time we're feeling like we got a group of them, I'll sneak back from behind the camera and come up here and get some more of these answered. This is I love getting your insight on this stuff, especially when the questions are so like honest and earnest and those kinds of things, because it's cool how you, and not everybody gets to see this, how you interact with the people on your Patreon channel. It's great to see how you interact with your clients, but just people who come up to you and have questions that you really do. What you said before is that the person that's across from you is the most important person. It's your favorite person right then. What a great job you do about being intentional and giving time and answering those questions is so cool. So it's fun to get to ask on behalf of some others some of the stuff that's been asked. It's pretty neat.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I like it.
Thanks, Lucas. If you are not a Patreon member, please join or consider it. I have 3 different levels. I have a Patreon for women. I have a Patreon for pageantry through She Wins. And I started a new Patreon for dog handlers through mental management for dog handlers Patreon. So if you're interested in any of those, please feel free to join. There's a lot of really great content there. And you get discounts on webinars and products.